Elara's phone buzzed at 4:47 a.m., the screen lighting up her exhausted face in the darkened bakery kitchen. "You're seated at table 14. It's near the kitchen so you can keep an eye on the cake, lol." She read Vivian's text 3 times, waiting for the joke to land differently. Didn't. Table 14. The vendor table. At her own sister's wedding. She was surrounded by 5 tiers of champagne gold perfection. 40 hours of work, thousands of dollars in ingredients. Every technique she'd mastered in a decade of pastry training. The cake was stunning. The cake was flawless. The cake was the only thing about her they wanted. Her hands moved automatically, piping the final buttercream rose. She'd been here since midnight, and her body had gone numb somewhere around hour 3. Numbness was useful. Numbness was how she survived being the daughter nobody wanted in the wedding party. Not a bridesmaid, not a speech, just labor, and a seat near the kitchen, with the photographer's assistant and the venue intern, because even at her sister's celebration, Elara Vaughn was staff. She set down the piping bag and flexed her cramping fingers. Through the bakery's front window, Sterling City was still dark except for streetlights reflecting off last night's rain. Her phone buzzed again. Her mother this time. "The cake will photograph well in natural light. Don't let them set it up before 4 p.m. Not thank you. Not how are you holding up. Just instructions for managing her own work." Elara stared at the message, then at the cake. Perfect and silent and ultimately meaningless. She could build 1,000 architectural masterpieces, and she would still be invisible to them. Her business partner Nina would arrive at 6 with the transport van. 2 hours to load, drive to Rivermark Pavilion, and set up before the venue flooded with wedding coordinators who would assume Elara was hired help. Which technically she was. The family had negotiated her fee through Nina, not her. Her mother had haggled over fondant costs while planning a $300,000 wedding, addressing every question to Nina as if her own daughter were simply hands that executed orders. Elara had stopped trying to understand it years ago. Some families were loud in their cruelty. Hers was quietly surgical. Small cuts that never quite healed, delivered with concerned expressions and statements that started with, "I'm only saying this because I love you." She typed back to Vivian, "Sounds good." Then she returned to the roses, because finishing what she started was the only thing she knew how to do. The memory surfaced uninvited. Her culinary school graduation 3 years ago. Her parents had arrived late, stayed for photos, left before the reception. Her father had been paged for surgery. Her mother had a charity luncheon. Her older sister Corinne had called it unfortunate timing. Vivian hadn't come at all, conflicted with a yacht party in the Hamptons. But when Elara won the Sterling City Pastry Innovation Award last year, creating a dessert that food critics called architectural poetry, her mother's only comment had been, "Well, that's nice, dear, though I do worry all those late nights aren't good for your cortisol levels." Translation, "You're gaining weight again." Elara finished the final rose and stepped back. The cake was stunning. 5 tiers of champagne gold and blush pink, cascading sugar flowers, hand-painted gold leaf that caught light like captured sun. It was easily the most beautiful thing that would exist at Vivian's wedding. No one would mention who made it. 3 weeks earlier, everything had shifted in a way Elara hadn't anticipated. A man named Kang Seojin had walked into Sweet Theory at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday and spent 40 minutes studying the pastry case without speaking. Most customers decided in 3 minutes. He took 10 times that long, observing each item with the focus of someone conducting research. He was striking in an understated way. Sharp features, expensive but simple clothing, and a stillness that made him seem like the only stationary object in a world of constant motion. Nina had been ready to offer help 3 times. Elara had stopped her each time. "He's not lost," she'd said. "He's deciding if we're serious." Finally, he'd ordered a honey lavender macaron, a brown butter quenelle, and a slice of the passion fruit yuzu tart. He'd eaten them slowly at the window counter, taking notes on his phone between bites. Then he'd approached the register. "Who's the pastry chef?" "That would be me," Elara had said, wiping flour from her apron. He'd studied her the same way he'd studied the pastries, thorough and unhurried. The caneel had perfect texture. Crisp exterior, custardy center, no guminess. That's rare. It's about temperature control and baking vessel material. Copper conducts heat better than silicon. Most people don't bother with copper anymore. It's expensive and temperamental. Most people don't care if it's actually good. They care if it looks good in photos. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. I'm looking for someone to cater a private event. 60 people. Menu needs to be elegant but not pretentious. Technically impressive but approachable. What's the occasion? Investor dinner. Venture capital firm. Then you want theater without gimmicks. Flavors that are familiar enough to trust but complex enough to remember. He'd set a business card on the counter. Minimal design, just a name and phone number. Kang Seojin. She'd recognized the name later that night when she Googled him. He ran a private equity firm that specialized in sustainable technology startups. Korean-American, Stanford MBA, known for turning down more deals than he accepted. He had the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. The event had been last week. She designed a 7-course dessert tasting that had 3 investors asking who she was. Seojin had thanked her privately afterward in the venue's kitchen while her team packed up. 3 investors asked who you were. One wants to hire you for his daughter's engagement party. I'm not really a caterer. This was a one-time thing. Why? Because I have a bakery. Catering is chaos. You're exceptionally good at it. Being good at something doesn't mean you have to do it. He'd paused, absorbing that. Fair point. But if you change your mind, call me. She hadn't planned to, but he'd started coming into Sweet Theory twice a week, always ordering something different, always offering quiet observations about technique or flavor. Never intrusive, never assuming familiarity. Just present. Felt foreign. Being noticed for what she built rather than what she lacked. Now, at 4:47 a.m. on her sister's wedding day, Elara wondered if Seojin would understand what it felt like to be erased by the people who were supposed to love you most. Nina arrived at 6 with coffee and sympathy. Ready to do this? Do I have a choice? You always have a choice. You just don't always like the options. They loaded the cake into the custom transport van with the kind of precision that came from years of partnership. Nina had been there from the beginning, when Elara's family had dismissed the bakery as a cute hobby, when her mother had suggested she focus on finding a husband instead of building a business, when her father had offered to introduce her to colleagues' sons, as if that were the solution to everything. Table 14, Elara said as they drove through the empty city streets. That's where they're seating me. Are you serious? Vivian texted me at 4 a.m. That's not okay. It's very okay. It's exactly what I should have expected. Nina was quiet for a moment. You don't have to stay. You could set up the cake and leave. And give them more ammunition? My mother would turn that into a referendum on my character for the next decade. Your mother's opinion of your character stopped matching the day you realized she'd never approve of you anyway. Elara looked out the window at the awakening city. I keep thinking if I'm just good enough at something, they'll see me. They see you. They just don't value what they see. That's not a reflection of you. It was almost exactly what Seojin had said during their last conversation. The consistency was either comforting or disturbing. Elara hadn't decided which. They arrived at Rivermark Pavilion at 6:30 a.m. The venue was Sterling City's most exclusive waterfront location. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, marble floors, architecture designed to make people feel both sophisticated and small. Elara's mother was already there, micromanaging florists. Elara. Lucille's voice was warm in that specifically hollow way. The cake. It's in the van? Yes. We'll bring it through the service entrance and set it up in the designated area. Make sure the gold leaf isn't too reflective in photographs. I don't want it looking gaudy. Elara had used 23-karat edible gold leaf, the same product used by Michelin-starred restaurants. It would photograph beautifully. She knew this. Her mother knew this. But the criticism was the point, not the concern. I'll make sure it's perfect, Elara said. And darling, Lucille's hand landed on Elara's shoulder. I know you've been working so hard. Try to enjoy yourself today. You look tired. Translation, you look bad. I'll do my best. Oh, and your dress for this evening. I had Caroline steam it. The one you picked had wrinkles. I hope you don't mind, but I had her swap it for the navy one. It's more flattering for your figure. Elara had spent 2 months finding a dress that made her feel confident. Navy made her feel like she was trying to disappear. That was thoughtful of you, she said. Because that's what you said when someone wrapped control in concern. Lucille smiled. That's what mothers are for. They spent 3 hours setting up the cake. Every tier perfectly level, every flower positioned for maximum visual impact, every detail photographed and documented in case something went wrong. By 10 a.m., the cake was installed and Elara was exhausted. She found a quiet corner in the venue's service hallway and pulled out her phone. Without thinking about it too carefully, she texted Seojin. How's your Saturday? The reply came quickly. Quiet. Working. How's wedding prep? Complicated. Want to talk about it? She did. Desperately. But she also didn't want to be the person who unloaded emotional baggage on someone she barely knew. Maybe later, if that's okay. Anytime. I mean that. She stared at the message, trying to understand why this near stranger's consistency felt more solid than 27 years of family. The rest of the day was a blur of activity, hair and makeup, getting dressed in the navy gown she hadn't chosen, watching her family prepare for a celebration she'd helped build but wasn't really part of. By 4 p.m., guests were arriving. By 4:30, Elara had been mistaken for staff twice. Once by a bridesmaid who'd asked her to refill the champagne fountain. Once by Vivian's future mother-in-law, who'd requested extra napkins. Elara had nodded both times and walked away, because correcting them felt pointless. She found her seat at table 14 just before the ceremony began. Photographer's assistant, venue intern, 2 people she didn't recognize. Her place card ready. Vaughn, as if even her full name took up too much space. Table 2, the family table, was visible across the room. Her parents, Corinne and her husband, and 2 empty seats presumably for Vivian and her new spouse after the ceremony. No seat for Elara. Corinne caught her eye and waved, bright and performative. Elara waved back, wondering if her sister even noticed the cruelty of the seating arrangement, or if it had simply seemed logical to everyone involved. The ceremony began. Elara watched from the back, standing near the kitchen doors because a decorative column blocked her view from her assigned seat. She watched her sister marry someone she'd never had a real conversation with. She watched her father give a speech about family and legacy. She watched her mother cry elegant tears. She watched her cake being positioned for photographs. No one looked her way. The reception started with cocktails and small talk. Elara returned to table 14 and made polite conversation with the photographer's assistant about aperture settings. The venue in turn talked about event planning school. The 2 strangers discussed real estate markets. Nobody asked what Elara did. Nobody asked how she knew the bride. She existed in the space between guest and staff, acknowledged but unimportant. Dinner was served at 7. Elara picked at salmon she couldn't taste while speeches began. Vivian's maid of honor spoke first, talking about sisterhood and loyalty and always being there for each other. She did not mention Elara, who had spent 6 months listening to Vivian's wedding anxieties over phone calls. Vivian always ended early. Then Elara's father stood. Dr. Marcus Vaughn, renowned cardiothoracic surgeon, beloved family man. He talked about his daughters, plural, but spoke only about Vivian's accomplishments, Vivian's kindness, Vivian's bright future. I remember when Vivian was 8 years old, he said, his voice warm with memory. She told me she wanted to change the world. And watching her today, marrying a man who shares her values and vision, I know she will. Applause. Laughter. Tears. No mention of Elara, who at 8 years old had told him she wanted to be a chef, and he'd patted her head and said, "That's nice, sweetheart." Corinne spoke next about family traditions and how Vivian embodied everything the Vaughns represented. Grace, intelligence, beauty. Our family has always valued excellence, Corinne said. And Vivian exemplifies that in everything she does. Elara's hands were shaking. She set down her fork before anyone could notice. Finally, her mother stood. Lucille Vaughn, former beauty queen, current society matriarch. She spoke about love and sacrifice and the joy of watching children become adults. "I'm so grateful," Lucille said, her voice catching perfectly. "To everyone who made today possible, to the staff at Rivermark Pavilion, to our incredible wedding planner, to all the vendors who brought our vision to life." Vendors, not Elara, just vendors. And most importantly, Lucille continued, to our family and friends who have supported Vivian on this journey. You are all part of this love story. The applause was deafening. Elara excused herself to the bathroom. The service hallway was blessedly empty. She leaned against the wall and let herself feel nothing. A skill she'd perfected over 27 years of being professionally dismissed. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. A text from Seojin. "How's the wedding?" She stared at the message. They'd exchanged numbers after the investor dinner but had only texted about business, delivery schedules, ingredient sourcing, nothing personal. Her fingers moved before her brain caught up. "I don't know how to answer that honestly." 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, "Are you okay?" "No." The dots appeared and disappeared twice before his response came. "Do you want to talk about it?" She should say no. She should go back inside, endure 3 more hours, go home, and pretend everything was fine. Instead, she called him. He answered on the first ring. "Elara, I'm at my sister's wedding," she said. "I made the cake. 5 tiers, 40 hours of work. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever created. I don't doubt that. No one mentioned me. Not once. Not in speeches, not when people asked who made it. My mother called me a vendor." Silence. Then, "Where are you seated?" "Table 14. With the photographer's assistant and the venue in turn." More silence. She could hear something in the background, wind. Maybe he was outside somewhere. "I'm not surprised," she said. "I just thought maybe this time would be different." "Why would it be different?" "Because I did everything right. I made something perfect." "They don't deserve your perfect." Her throat tightened. "I keep thinking I can earn it. If I'm just good enough at something, they'll see me." "They see you," Seojin said quietly. "They just don't value what they see. That's not a reflection of you." Elara closed her eyes. "I don't know why I called you. Because you needed someone to tell you that you're not crazy. You're not. I should go back inside." "You don't have to. If I leave, it'll cause problems. You staying is already a problem. Just for you instead of them." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You don't understand my family. I understand that you're standing in a hallway at your own sister's wedding because being around them is unbearable. I understand that they used your labor and erased your presence. That's not family. That's exploitation." The word hit like cold water. "I'm 27, Elara said. "I'm too old to be this broken about not being in the wedding party. Pain doesn't have an expiration date. I just want to matter to them. You do matter. That's why they keep you close enough to use but far enough to dismiss. If you didn't matter, they'd leave you alone." Elara opened her eyes. The hallway lighting was unflattering and institutional. She could hear music from the reception. Something upbeat and joyful. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "Then don't. It's not that simple." "It is exactly that simple. It's just not easy." "Where are you?" she asked. "At home. Working late. On a Saturday? I don't have anywhere else to be." Something about that admission, the loneliness underneath the competence, made her chest ache. "Thank you for answering," she said. "Elara," he paused. "You don't have to go back in there. I made a 5-tier cake. I can survive 3 more hours." Surviving isn't the same as living. She didn't have a response to that. "Call me if you need to," he said. "Anytime." She hung up and stared at her phone. Then she returned to the reception, to table 14, to 3 more hours of being invisible. But something had shifted. For the first time in her life, someone had named what was happening to her without making excuses for it. The cake cutting happened at 8 p.m. Vivian and her husband posed with the knife, smiling for photographers. Guests applauded. Someone asked who made it. Lucille answered smoothly, a local bakery. Very talented. Not Elara. Not her daughter. A local bakery. Elara felt something crystallize in her chest. Not anger, but clarity. She wasn't overlooked. She was deliberately erased. She stood and walked toward the exit, but her mother intercepted her near the bar. Elara, darling, where are you going? Getting some air. Well, don't be long. We're doing family photos in 20 minutes. I wasn't told about family photos. It's last minute. The photographer has extra time. I'm not really dressed for photos. She gestured at the navy dress. You look lovely. Stop being self-conscious. Mom, I need to ask you something. Lucille's smile tightened. Now isn't really the time. Why wasn't I in the wedding party? Vivian wanted to keep it small. She had 8 bridesmaids. She wanted her closest friends. I'm her sister. Elara, please. This is her day. Don't make it about you. I made her cake. For free. I've been here since 6 a.m. setting up. I listened to 6 months of wedding stress. And I wasn't in the wedding party. I wasn't mentioned in speeches. And I'm seated with the staff. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. We gave you a lovely seat. At the vendor table. Near the kitchen so you could monitor the cake. You should be grateful we included you at all. The words hung in the air like smoke. That's what you think? Elara's voice was very quiet. That I should be grateful? I think you're making a scene at your sister's wedding, yes. I haven't said a word to anyone. I've been sitting quietly at table 14 all night. Your energy is affecting the atmosphere. Several people have commented that you seem withdrawn. I'm withdrawn because I'm hurt. That's your choice. No, Mom. It's yours. You chose where to seat me. You chose not to mention me in your speech. You chose to call me a vendor when someone asked about the cake. Lucille's expression hardened. I've been very patient with you, Elara, but this has gone on long enough. If you're going to sulk all evening, perhaps it would be better if you left. You want me to leave. I'm suggesting you might be more comfortable at home. Before my own sister's cake is even fully served. The cake is beautiful. Everyone said so. You should be proud. But yes, if staying is this difficult for you, perhaps it's best. Elara looked at her mother. Really looked. At the woman who'd spent decades perfecting the art of cutting people down while smiling. At the parent who measured love in appearances and found Elara perpetually insufficient. Okay, Elara said. Lucille blinked. Okay, I'll leave. You're right. I'm not enjoying myself. Well, good. I'm glad we could discuss this maturely. Elara walked through the reception hall one final time. Past the table where her family sat, laughing and celebrating. Past the dance floor where guests were starting to gather. Past the cake that nobody knew she'd made. She collected her coat from the check room and stepped into the cool October night. The parking lot was half empty. Valets were smoking by the entrance. Music and laughter poured from the venue's windows. A celebration she'd built but didn't belong to. She sat in her car and called Seojin. He answered immediately. Are you okay? My mother just asked me to leave. Politely. Because my unhappiness was affecting the atmosphere. Jesus. I'm in my car. I don't know where to go. Do you want to come here? Where's here? Hanul Residences. I'll send you the address. I don't want to impose. Elara. His voice was firm. You're not an imposition. Come here. She drove across the city in her navy dress that wasn't hers, with her makeup smudged and her feet aching from hours in heels. The address led her to a high-rise in Sterling City's financial district, all glass and steel and understated wealth. Seojin met her in the lobby. He was in joggers and a t-shirt, barefoot, looking more human than she'd seen him. His expression shifted when he saw her face. Come on, he said quietly. His penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Furniture that was expensive because it was well-made rather than ostentatious. felt lived in and calm. He led her to the kitchen, massive and professional grade, and started making tea. "I left my sister's wedding," Elara said, sitting on a bar stool, "before it was over. My mother will never forgive me." "Your mother asked you to leave." "She suggested it." I agreed. "That's not the same as abandoning someone." "My family won't see it that way." Seojin set a cup of green tea in front of her. "How do you see it?" Elara wrapped her hands around the cup. "I see it as the first honest thing I've done in years. Then it was the right choice. You don't know my family. This will become evidence of everything wrong with me. My selfishness. My inability to be part of something larger than myself. Or," Seojin said, leaning against the counter, "it will be evidence that you finally stopped accepting mistreatment. They'll say I'm being dramatic. People who benefit from your silence always do." Elara looked at him. This man she barely knew who kept saying exactly what she needed to hear. "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because someone should be. You don't owe me anything. Kindness isn't debt, Elara. It's just what you do when you see someone in pain." She felt tears coming and fought them down. "I made the most beautiful cake of my career tonight, and no one cared. I care. You didn't even see it. I don't need to see it to know it was beautiful. I've tasted your work. I've watched you talk about technique and ingredient sourcing and the chemistry of baking. You don't create anything that isn't beautiful." The tears came anyway, quiet and exhausting. Seojin didn't try to stop them or comfort them away. He just handed her tissues and refilled her tea and sat across from her in silence that felt like the opposite of emptiness. "I don't know what to do now," Elara said eventually. "You don't have to know. You can just be here." So she sat in Kang Seojin's kitchen at 10 p.m. on her sister's wedding night, drinking tea and crying and feeling seen for the first time in 27 years. Around midnight, exhaustion hit. Seojin showed her to a guest room with clean sheets and blackout curtains. She fell asleep still in her navy dress, too tired to care. She woke at 6 a.m., disoriented and sore. Through the windows, Sterling City was waking up, sunrise painting the harbor gold. Seojin was in the kitchen making coffee. "Morning," he said. "How do you take it?" "Black. 2 sugars." He brought her a mug. "There are clothes in the guest room closet if you want to change. My sister leaves things here." "Thank you." "You should check your messages." "I know what they'll say." "Check anyway." She picked up her phone. 17 missed calls. 43 texts. 3 voicemails. "Vivian, where did you go?" "Mom is furious." "Corinne, you couldn't last one night without making it about you." Her mother, "This is unacceptable. Call me immediately." "Nina, are you okay? Your mom is calling the bakery." Elara scrolled through them all, feeling nothing. Then she played her mother's voicemail. "Elara, I don't know what stunt you're trying to pull, but leaving your sister's wedding without saying goodbye is cruel and selfish. You embarrassed this entire family. People were asking where you went. I had to make excuses for you. Again, I expect you to call me today and apologize to your sister. This behavior is unacceptable." The second voicemail was from her father. "Elara, your mother is very upset. I think you should call her and smooth things over. You know how she gets." The third was Vivian, crying. "I don't understand why you left. Was it something I did? Mom says you were upset about seating, but I didn't choose the tables. Just call me. Okay?" Elara set the phone down. "They're making it my fault," she said. "Of course they are." Vivian's crying. "Vivian will survive. You don't understand. I understand that your mother asked you to leave, and now she's angry that you did. I understand that your family's comfort requires your discomfort. I understand that they've trained you to believe your pain is always your fault." Elara looked at him. "You sound like you've been through this." "I have. Different specifics, same pattern. My family wanted me to take over their import business. I wanted to study environmental policy and invest in sustainable technology. Every choice I made that aligned with my values was treated as personal betrayal. What happened? I stopped asking permission, started my own firm, They didn't speak to me for 2 years. That sounds horrible. It was. But it was also necessary. Because the alternative was spending my life building someone else's definition of success. Are you close with them now? We're cordial. I see them twice a year. We don't discuss my work. It's not what I wanted, but it's honest. Her phone buzzed. Corinne, Mom wants you at the house for brunch. 10 a.m. Don't make this worse. They want me at brunch, Elara said. To explain myself. Are you going? I don't know. What do you think will happen if you go? Elara thought about it. They'll make me apologize. They'll explain why everything I did was wrong. They'll extract a promise that I'll do better. And I'll leave feeling like I'm the problem. And if you don't go, they'll be furious. They're already furious. The question is whether you're willing to set a boundary. I've never set a boundary with them. I know. Elara looked at her phone. At the messages demanding her presence, her apology, her compliance. She thought about the cake no one mentioned. The table near the kitchen. The years of being competent and invisible. She typed, I'm not coming to brunch. I need time to think. Then she turned off her phone. There, she said. I did it. Seojin smiled. How does it feel? Terrifying. That's normal. Also kind of good. Also normal. 2 weeks passed. Elara didn't contact her family. They didn't contact her either, except for one email from Corinne marked important that Elara deleted without reading. She focused on the bakery, on new recipes and customer orders and the steady rhythm of work that had always made sense when nothing else did. Nina didn't push, just worked beside her with quiet solidarity. Seojin came by 3 times a week. Sometimes he ordered pastries. Sometimes he just sat at the window counter and worked on his laptop. His presence was steady and undemanding. Exactly what she needed. On Thursday afternoon, her phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Elara Vaughn? Yes. My name is Jennifer Park. I'm a writer for Culinary Vision magazine. I'd love to interview you about your work at Sweet Theory. Elara set down her whisk. Culinary Vision? Yes. We're doing a feature on emerging pastry chefs who are pushing boundaries with flavor and technique. Your name came up from several sources. Would you be interested? I would. Absolutely. The interview happened 3 days later. Jennifer spent 2 hours at Sweet Theory, tasting everything, asking questions about Elara's training, her philosophy, her inspiration. She photographed the kitchen, the finished products, Elara working. You have a really distinct style, Jennifer said. Everything is elegant but unfussy, complex but accessible. That's the goal. I don't want people to feel intimidated by good pastry. Where did you train? Sterling Culinary Institute. Did a stage in Paris after graduation. Then came back to open this place with my business partner. Family business? No, my family isn't really involved. Jennifer didn't push, but something in her expression softened. That must have been hard. Starting something this ambitious without family support. It was. But it was also freeing. The article came out 3 weeks later. Full spread. Beautiful photos. A profile that made Elara sound like someone worth knowing. Her phone exploded. Orders doubled. Event requests tripled. A James Beard Foundation representative called about a regional award nomination. Her mother sent a text. Saw the article. Very nice. We should celebrate. Corinne sent. Congrats. Didn't know you were doing so well. Vivian sent. This is amazing, Elle. So proud. Elara read them all and felt nothing. Then Seojin's message came through. Saw the article. You deserve every word of it. That one made her cry. They'd been seeing each other properly for a month. Dinners, walks, long conversations in his penthouse kitchen while Elara taught him how to make French macarons. It wasn't dramatic or rushed. It was steady and careful and real. 5 weeks after the wedding, the confrontation came. Elara was at Sweet Theory when her mother walked in unannounced. Elara, we need to talk. Nina glanced at Elara, concerned. Elara nodded. They sat at a corner table. Lucille ordered nothing. I've been very patient, Lucille began. But this has gone on long enough. You embarrassed this family at your sister's wedding. You've been avoiding us. And now I find out you're dating some investor without introducing him. His name is Kang Seojin. I don't care what his name is. The point is you're making choices without considering this family. I'm making choices for myself. That's selfish. No, Mom. It's healthy. We gave you everything. You gave me criticism wrapped in concern. You gave me a seat at the vendor table. You gave me 40 years of feeling insufficient. You're being dramatic. The door opened. Seojin walked in with Park Doyen, his chief of staff, behind him. He must have been nearby. Must have known this was coming. Lucille looked at him, then at Elara. Is this him? Mom, this is Kang Seojin. Seojin, my mother, Lucille. Seojin didn't offer his hand. Mrs. Vaughn, I think it's time for you to leave. Lucille laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Excuse me? You don't get access to people you mistreat. This is a family matter. Family doesn't weaponize love. Family doesn't erase people from celebrations they built. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm calling it what it is. How dare you? I'm not interested in debating. I'm telling you that Elara doesn't owe you her presence, her labor, or her forgiveness. And if you continue this pattern, you'll lose access to her entirely. Lucille looked at Elara. You're letting him speak for you? No, Elara said quietly. He's saying what I've been afraid to say. I don't want to do this anymore, Mom. I don't want to be the daughter you tolerate. I want to be loved, or I want to be left alone. You're choosing him over your family. I'm choosing myself. Lucille stood, collected her purse, and walked out without another word. The bakery was silent. Elara looked at Seojin. That was intense. Too much. No. Exactly enough. Doyen cleared his throat. I'll make sure she actually leaves. He disappeared outside. Nina emerged from the kitchen. Elle? You okay? Ask me in a week. Seojin sat beside her. You're allowed to feel however you feel. I feel like I just jumped off a cliff. You did. But you weren't alone. 3 months later, Elara walked through Koreatown with Seojin, eating hotdog from a street vendor and debating pastry applications. Brown sugar has molasses depth, she argued. Honey can overpower delicate flavors. Counterpoint. Honey creates better moisture retention. You've been reading my textbooks. I find them fascinating. She laughed. It came easily now, the laughter, the lightness, the sense that she was allowed to take up space. Her family hadn't contacted her since the confrontation. Vivian had sent one photo, them as children, flower girls at someone else's wedding. Caption: I miss you. Elara had saved it but hadn't responded. The James Beard nomination had come through. Sweet Theory was booked solid. Her life was full in ways she'd never imagined. There's a gala next month, Seojin said. Fundraiser for sustainable agriculture. I'm being honored. Would you come? As your date. As my partner. The word landed differently. Heavier. More real. Will your family be there? Probably. I want to meet them. He looked surprised. Yeah. If they're part of your life, I want to know them. It's complicated. I'm learning to be okay with complicated. They turned down a side street, past restaurants with steamed windows and neon signs. The neighborhood smelled like belonging. I'm proud of you, Seojin said. For what? For choosing yourself. It's still hard. Some days I want to call them and apologize. That's normal. But I don't, because I remember what it felt like to be erased. And now, Elara thought about the bakery, the magazine feature, the boundaries she was learning to hold. About people who chose her back. Now I feel visible, she said. Seojin smiled. Good. They walked in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other in the margins and decided to build something better. Later, Elara posted on Sweet Theory's Instagram a photo of new menu items, creative and beautiful. The caption read, "Some families are born, others are chosen. Both are valid. Both are real." The post got 3,000 likes in an hour, 200 comments. Dozens of messages from people sharing their own stories of chosen family, of boundaries set, of love redefined. Nina texted, "You're inspiring people." Seojin texted, "Proud of you." And for the first time in her life, Elara believed them both. She sat in her bakery that evening after closing, surrounded by the smell of butter and sugar and possibility. Her phone buzzed. An email from the James Beard Foundation. An invitation to compete in their regional pastry competition. She read it twice, then called Seojin. "I got invited to compete. That's incredible. It's in 3 months. I'll need to develop an entirely new menu. You'll be brilliant. You don't know that." "I do, actually. I've watched you work. I've tasted what you create when you're building for yourself instead of trying to earn someone else's approval. That version of you is unstoppable." Elara leaned back in her chair, looking at the empty bakery. At the kitchen where she'd spent countless hours turning pain into beauty. At the space she'd built with her own hands when her family said it wasn't worth building. "I think I'm happy," she said. "You think. I'm not used to it. I don't know what it feels like yet. It feels like this, what you're experiencing right now." "Then yeah, I'm happy." She could hear him smiling through the phone. "Good. You deserve it." After they hung up, Elara sat in the quiet bakery for another hour, just breathing, just being, just existing in a space where she was valued not despite who she was, but because of it. Some people spent their whole lives waiting to be seen by the family they were born into. Elara had stopped waiting. She'd built something better instead. A life constructed from choice rather than obligation, from mutual respect rather than conditional approval. The wedding cake she'd made for Vivian had been perfect. 5 tiers of architectural beauty that no one had acknowledged. But it had also been the catalyst, the moment when the pattern became so clear she couldn't ignore it anymore. Some gifts aren't meant to be received with gratitude. Some gifts are meant to teach you who deserves your effort and who doesn't. Elara had learned, and in learning she'd become free. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family or had to choose yourself over people who wouldn't choose you back, leave a comment below. Share your story. You're not alone. And if you want more stories about finding yourself and building the life you actually want, hit that subscribe button. Sometimes the family you choose is the one that saves you. Remember that. Hold on to that. Build from that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for understanding that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. See you in the next one.